everybody. This is the next episode of the KAAMP. That is the Knoxville Area Artists Network and Platform podcast thing. And today, it's been a minute since I've been on the microphone, and I'm really happy to be out of the can, so to speak, and back sort of doing things on the fly. But that being said, now we're here. And friend, if you would introduce yourself, we'll get the ball rolling.
I'm Brandon Woods. I am an artist that works across art, math, science, and craft, all four of which are incredibly important to my work. And I make really dynamic abstract paintings on dimensional shaped panels and, more recently, prismatic photographs.
I was going to ask about several of those things, so right. I'm glad you put labels on the things I had curiosities about. So let's start with the prismatic photographs.
Sure. Yeah.
How did you come to that label for this output?
Well, I literally create the photographs through a prism.
Okay.
Yeah. Let me show you. Right.
Oh, we have props. This is excellent.
We have props.
for the audio-only podcast, yes. We have props.
Yes. Here we go.
So you have a dichroic cube on the end of this thing?
Yes.
Is that a custom-made lens?
This is not. It is a circular polarizer.
Okay.
Just so that I can spin it around. And, yeah, I shoot through this, and that's how I get my prismatic images. So, yeah. For those listening, which is everybody, this is
there's no video here.
Yeah.
But we are live in the past for the future, so, you know.
I'm so familiar with those, like, those video podcasts, I guess is what you'll call them, that have for those listening. Yeah. So that's what I'm thinking about. What I'm holding is my camera. And it has on it a circular polarizer screwed onto the end of it. And on that circular polarizer, I have mounted a trichroic prism, which is, it's a cube. Think of a prismatic cube.
So, and for a sense of scale, this is like 2 inches, right?
Yeah, it's 50 millimeters cube. And so inside there is this interference film that is breaking the light up into the primary colors of light, red, green, and blue. And each side of the prism is bringing in one specific color of light. So the front is bringing in green, one side is bringing in red, and the other side is bringing in blue. And what that works out to in real world scenario is that I have a almost 180 degree image that I'm creating, and I'm able to focus on specific parts of the image to highlight the area that comes in blue or the area that comes in red or green, and the image brings in a lot of, I don't know if you would call them ghosts or artifacts of the light that's coming into the other two prisms. And all that light is recombining in the camera on the sensor, and it is full color again. Mm-hmm. So it's almost as if it's a multiple exposure, but it's all happening simultaneously through the use of this prism. What it creates are these stunningly colorful images that I am just absolutely in love with. Yeah.
So I noticed you said that prism was a trichroic prism.
Trichroic. Yeah.
I've been exposed to dichroic glass, and I'm very familiar with that. So is that different than this?
This would be I think another name for it is split dichroic.
Okay.
So it's a dichroic prism that's just split again.
Okay.
Or you take two dichroic prisms, put them together, and that's how you get a trichroic.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's more of a mechanical property that lends itself to that name than some other facet of this.
I suppose, yeah.
Excellent.
I mean, there are three primary colors of light, so
right.
the try might fit in there too.
It all works
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
So, what drew you to this? Was it the color? Was it the process? Where did you and how did you discover this was a thing you were into?
So my dad found these prisms online, and he bought a handful of them, and he gave me one. I was at his house, and he gave it to me, and I was mesmerized by it, just kind of playing around with it. And I thought, I wonder what this would look like if I take pictures of it with my phone. And that I was using I think it was an iPhone 12 or something, just by today's standards, it's just terrible pictures. But
But the
back
not too
then, it was
distant
nice.
past.
Yeah, yeah. And I was able to get shockingly close up to it because the distance of what I was focusing on was further away than the prism itself was. And I was able to just kind of see into the prism and see a reflection of one of my other paintings through it. And I used that to make one of my really successful paintings that I had in my last exhibition. But from there, it's been that was about 5 years ago. And from there, it's really just been a little bit of exploration here and there. It was kind of just maybe once a year I would get a wild hair and take out the prism and just kind of see what else I could do with it. And eventually I thought, well, why am I sticking my phone up to this? I literally taped it on with just Scotch masking tape and just moved that around for a while and tried that out. And then I got a couple of more prisms and I taped those together and then taped that on my phone. So it was just covered in Scotch tape. It looked like a Christmas present. The more tape, the more love, right?
Right, yeah.
So then I was granted this camera from the Bailey grant, and I really wanted to figure out a way that I could translate that same idea of shooting through a prism onto this. But whereas the iPhone has I don't know, probably a 5mm camera lens on it. The my camera has really I think it's probably about 72 millimeters.
A little larger than the.
So yeah, and so I needed to find a really big prism to put on the end of it, and so finally,
to the internet one goes.
Yeah, and it took me a long time to find one. Yeah, there was a company in Japan that I emailed probably 2 or 3 times, and they just wouldn't respond. They were the only ones that I was able to imagine that would be making one. But finally, I just found a seller on eBay that had, I think, almost by chance, a couple of these really large prisms, because I've emailed him since then. Hey, do you have any more of those prisms? Like I'm a prism junkie all of a sudden. I need more. And he doesn't have any more available.
So it was a happenstance you acquired.
It really was. It really was. Yeah. I was really lucky to get it.
The world provides like that. It's great.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I've been just kind of geeking out on that ever since, just shooting everywhere that I can, and really trying to understand how it works in terms of being able to craft my composition a little bit more, because it's still just confusing. Like, it'll just play with your mind. What you expect is going to happen will really produce a pretty terrible picture, but then just randomly out of nowhere, it'll just be this run of 5 or 7 amazing pictures that are just blowing me away. Like, I was looking at one picture that I had made the other day of this peony, and it was I was actually wondering, did I actually take that, or did that, like, was that like the Photoshop AI? Because I had messed with it in
Yeah.
Photoshop AI just to play with the new AI and see what that would be like. But then I went back to the raw files, and no, that was just what it actually looked like, and it's just that spectacular. Yeah, yeah.
So my nerdy question about this is, you glued glass to glass.
I taped glass to glass.
Is this taped?
It's actually
This
just
is taped
taped.
right
It's
now?
taped with this really strong glass tape.
Okay.
That's been the best thing that I've been able to find to attach it. It won't come off with that, but I've tried different glass glues
Yeah.
on a cheapo circular polarizer, but one that was still marketed as, has all these waterproofing features and
Right.
all of that, because the nice circular polarizers are going to have they're going to have the same kind of membrane
Right.
on the glass, and so I needed to be able to explore with something that is going to resist whatever glue I'm putting
Yeah.
on there to see if I can actually get it to adhere. And
So that was a
they were
process
just
all by itself.
the prism, I could just hold the circular polarizer and just pop it off just easily, and then have to, fortunately it's glass, and from years of painting, I'm used to scraping stuff off of glass, so I was able to just scrape the glue off of the prism and start over again. But that tape is holding strong for what's been 8 months now.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, yeah,
Really nice.
yeah, yeah.
I'm glad that someone has some high expectations of tape.
Yeah, yeah. If you want to nerd out about tape, I am down for that, because I've been working with tape for at least 10 years now in different ways. All these,
Yeah, I was about to say, are these irregular patterns all taped off?
They are.
Hand done?
Yep. Yeah, yeah. So these are all these hard edge geometric abstract paintings with these super crisp lines, and I did all of those masking them off with tape to get those
All right,
really
so
precise lines.
are you a 3M guy or a Scotch guy?
I am an artist tape guy.
Artist tape. Okay.
Yeah, I use the artist tape. Yeah, it adheres really well. It stops the paint from getting under the tape, and it pulls off cleanly. And I know it's not supposed to be done, but I have left the tape on my paintings for 6 months or more, and I'm still able to pull it off cleanly.
Nice.
Yeah. Whereas some other tapes that I've tried were days or weeks, and it was just a sticky, nasty mess to be able to pull it off. And I think one time that tape actually pulled off part of a panel. I mean,
Never again. Throw that whole
exactly.
roll in the trash.
Yeah.
So if you would indulge me, can you take me through like a chronological timeline of your mediums? Like, where did you start? What was in the middle? Where you at now? Kind of thing.
Okay. Where did I start? Well, so I guess the question of where I started is, from when are we counting?
Yeah. All right. Well, to frame this question a little better, when is the first time you remember arting?
When's the first time that I was arting?
Yeah.
I feel like my first artistic expression was with Legos.
Fair.
I would always get the Lego set. I would build it according to the instructions, and within hours, I would have it taken apart, and I would have built my own thing, made my own thing out of it, and that was I feel like one of the most important aspects to my, very early childhood, and being able to see that I am able to create something from my own mind. And I mean, it got kind of ridiculous because it got to the point where I was building these giant elaborate sets and buying specific Lego sets, not because I thought that was the cool one, but because it had that Lego piece in it that I didn't have and I needed for this one specific
and
area.
this was
or
before
something.
You could go shop for like
Right.
the specific Legos by
Yeah.
the pound.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the expensive way to do it. You
Right?
were going the hard way.
Yeah. 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 And so from there, I went through, elementary school, middle school, and high school was whenever I started getting back into art a little bit. I went to Christian Academy of Knoxville, and my art teacher, Barb Johnson,
shout out.
She was the best. She was the exact thing that I needed as a human at the time, but also as a beginning artist, because she was, oh gosh, I don't know how to put it. She was like, unstoppably supportive.
That's awesome.
And encouraging.
Yeah.
She would come around and, my kind of depressive teenager self, oh, this looks terrible, blah, blah. And she would always make me feel better, but also help me to make it better too.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I needed.
That's solid teacher mentality right there. Yeah,
provided like a safe space for me if I needed to come in during lunch, or if I need to come in during like study hall, anything like that, work in like on a drawing or sculpture or whatever I was working on at the time, then I could.
Yeah, that's
and
great.
That was it was really special to have that. Strangely though, it didn't click with me that being an artist was a job. It was an actual career, and not in a dismissive way or anything like that. I just didn't really think of it that way.
Yeah.
And of course, at the same time, I had discovered music.
Oh no.
Yeah. And so I was playing bass guitar, and I discovered all these great bands. I mean, that was whenever the White Stripes were really in their heyday and everything like that. And so I was listening to all of those bands and decided what I wanted to do was go into music, and specifically into the recording industry.
Yeah.
So I went to Middle Tennessee State University for undergrad. And I started out in the recording industry program. Actually, me and some friends started a record label, Radio War Records. Great name.
That's an awesome
name for a record label. And but then I got into the first class that was really going to be the one that cut out all of the people that were going to make it. And I was one of the ones that wasn't going to make it. It was this copyright class, and I failed that first test so bad that even though the teacher was giving us the opportunity to retake the test, earn up to half the credit back, I still would have failed.
Oh man.
It was really bad.
Yeah, you bombed that
and
test.
At the same time, like that same semester, I was in this introduction to art class, which I was honestly taking as, just almost kind of like a throwaway class. Like, this will be fun.
Yeah.
I like art. This will just be interesting. And the second that I stepped into that art building on MTSU's campus, I felt like I was home.
It just felt right.
Yeah. I felt, I felt so much like this is exactly where I'm meant to be.
So did you walk back into the music classrooms ever after that?
So, after that first test, I was just like, I feel like this is the biggest sign. Like, it couldn't be more of a sign. Like, I'm going to have to retake this class. I'm going to have to, struggle through this again. I could not care less about copyright law for the music industry. Fast forward to today, I know everything about copyright law for an artist.
Yeah.
But, because it's important to me, and it's really important as a working artist to know that kind of thing. And so then maybe that was the thing that professor wasn't putting across, but maybe I just really didn't care because I had already found where I was meant to be. And so then from there, I started taking drawing classes, painting classes, sculpture classes, and I had some amazing professors there. Sissa Von Houghton and Michael Baggerly were the painting and sculpture professors. And I remember painting 3, which was kind of the first class past the fundamentals. Sissa Von told the class, I think it was like the very first day of class, she didn't really care what paintings we were making as long as they were good. And she didn't
like
care
a fundamentally good.
Yeah, she didn't care as if they were even necessarily what the medium that we were using was, as long as the work that we were making was good. And that was one of the most important things for me to hear, because that is one of those that I just adopted so hard into my philosophy of my work. And that's been ensuring that the work that I'm making is good and is really truly mine is the core of the work that I make.
So I really like that point, and that leads to something I like to pick brains about specifically. You said things that were yours. So do you feel as if there is a ratio of work that you produce that is genuinely yours and versus something you feel you're a conduit for? So ideas that come from outside of your head, or they just seem to happen upon you, versus things you can feel 100% the genesis of was in your brain. You thought this is my idea. And I know asking you to put a ratio on that is an oversimplification, but for conversational purposes, that really works.
Well, for me, it's simple because the ratio would be 100% mine.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't necessarily believe in any kind of it's not as if to say that I don't believe there's like the muse of painting or something like that, because there is something, an artist's relationship, like a painter's relationship with painting, is so deep and so intimate that it does really transcend ideas of careers or something like that. When an artist is really truly an artist, they die an artist. Like, they die on their feet, still making their work as best as they possibly can. And so, so there is a deep connection with the work through that, but my work is mine, and I make my work to see it made and to be the one to make it.
So the doing and the done, all you.
Yes.
And and you don't feel as if there's any kind of like ether that some ideas come to you from, or is that more so just being involved in the process?
I think that's very much being involved in the process. Notably, there are people in my life that have been really influential. I mean, my wife has the best feedback of anyone that I've ever known.
Yeah.
And some of my works wouldn't have been even half as successful without the criticisms that she's given me.
So she's good to have around.
She's wonderful. Yeah. Yeah. She's my favorite person. And so there's that aspect of it. I think there's also just definitely an element of it of what am I choosing to take in, what information am I paying attention to, what podcasts am I listening to right now, what books am I reading, everything like that.
It's really hard to separate the inputs from the outputs sometimes.
Right.
Like, you have to be aware of the things you consume because that affects the things you put out.
Yeah. Just in so much as the food that you're putting into your body, the information that you're putting into your mind is going to shape who you are.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Fully. Yeah. So where did geometry and patterns come into this headspace for you?
I would say it began with the work that I started producing immediately after I finished undergrad. And that work started from one graphic design class that I took. There's been a ongoing theme throughout my whole career of anytime that I learn something new, I'm always thinking, how can I apply this to painting?
Mm-hmm.
And so I was taking one graphic design class, and I'm
also so very guilty of that.
Yeah. Just, I don't care. Can you put it in terms of painting? And then I'll understand what you're saying. Yeah. But I learned how to use Adobe Illustrator in that. And at the time, I was early 20s, and I a white man living in the South. So I was really into exploring abandoned buildings. And so I was going into all these different abandoned buildings, and I was taking pictures with them. Some pictures, I was exploring this really interesting photographic technique where I would take a whole panorama of images to create this kind of sphere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that was maybe 5 years before PT GUI and everything like that started making that really possible.
Yeah.
The panoramic images and such. And there was one Japanese photographer that I had seen at the Frist who had been doing that, and I think that was like a big inspiration for me to do that. I can't remember his name. I don't think it was Tokihiro Sato. But I started taking these photographs that I had made in these abandoned spaces and converting them into these hard edge geometric vector paintings in Illustrator, where it would just be two colors, and I would just find highlights or something and create the composition that way, and then turn them into these gigantic paintings, 4x6 foot paintings. And I was in the Betsy Warden Memorial Artist in Residence program at the Emporium. This was, I think I was the next to last person to be able to receive that award. And the studio space there for that residency was maybe 10 by 10 feet by 6 feet. So
if you're working on big paintings,
are filling
that's a whole wall,
floor to ceiling. The whole wall. And I can't believe that I made my biggest paintings in my smallest studio space.
Well, the irony of that is great.
Yeah. And so that's where the well, that's where my obsession with tape started.
There it is.
Yeah, but also that's where I started getting into some of the geometry and things like that. And then that really exploded after I finished grad school, and I was working on these Eureka paintings, which are paintings that I developed a formula and an algorithm to create to determine the entire process of making a geometric abstract painting. So all of the colors, the composition, everything is defined by that algorithm, and then creating the work was effectively data expressionism.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was whenever I started thinking, well, now that I have all of this chance built into this, I'm still working on these store-bought painting panels. And why does every side have to be the same length?
Yeah.
Why does the depth on each corner have to be the same? And so I started building my own panels. And
was there a day where you were just looking at one of these, like, 20 by 30s or something, and you just like, this will not do anymore? Just like, I'm done with these. There had to be a moment where you're just like, no more.
There's just that, whenever I have that idea, and then it's just grating on me. And I've heard of several different artists, comedians, writers who say that whenever they have an idea, they have to write it down right then, or else they'll forget it.
It's in the wind after that, yeah.
I don't experience that. I experience almost the opposite.
Oh,
where
it's
if
like 60-40 for me.
Have the idea, it's not going to leave me alone until I have done something with it.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise
it's just here and
kind of thinking about it all the time. And, how am I have to do that. I have to see what's going to happen there. And of course, there's also the process where I iterate so much in my mind that I hadn't even constructed one shaped panel yet before I've already theorized how to start making these dimensional paintings.
Right.
And then spent, I think it was probably about 3 years trying to figure out how to actually construct those, which amounted to a self-apprenticeship in woodworking.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you built these things.
Yes.
Because I'd imagine you'd have to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I made a calculator to determine all of the different cuts that I need to make to construct one of these. And then from there, it's just been a process of improving my construction of them and just ensuring that they are the highest level of craftsmanship that I can possibly bring.
Before you even paint on them.
Before I even paint on them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, the panels themselves are already really works of art before I even paint on them. But it's the marriage of the two that really makes them stand out.
Right.
Yeah.
So what's the process for building one of these panels?
So I use Baltic birch plywood, which is the most dimensionally stable wood that I've been able to find. It's what they use in airplanes and in European cabinetry, and it's really, really wonderful to work with. And then I use tempered hardboard for the
surface.
Yeah, for the surface. And I determined the size and shape of the panel based on either the subject matter, like this one, autumnal, to which I had taken this photograph of the sky. I'm one of those people that at 37 I still have a favorite color, and my favorite color is the color of the sky in Tennessee in October.
That's a very specific color.
Yeah, it's when the sky just becomes this incredible electric blue, because it's through color theory that it happens, because it as all the leaves change color and you have all of those reds and yellows and oranges, they are all vibrating against the blue of the sky, and it just makes both seem so much more saturated and intense and just beautiful. And so that blue is that perfect blue that time of year, and that's my favorite color, and I wanted to capture that in this piece. And so I turned my camera upward towards the sky and caught this sliver of that perfect blue through two autumn trees.
Were you like walking down a trail or on a path or something?
I was on my parents' back porch.
Okay.
Yeah, they have woods behind their house, and the trees were tall and full of color and full of life, and so that was really the perfect place to capture that. And then I based the dimensions of the panel off of that.
Off of the photo?
Off of the photo. And so it's there's the aspect of these dimensional paintings that is also of how one perceives objects in space, versus how we actually see them in space. So if you're, it's kind of the classic drawing of an artist working from a camera obscura from back in the early Renaissance, and really, I guess, more the high Renaissance. But if you look at a square or a rectangle and you set it in space, and then you have a pane of glass up and you draw out that square or rectangle on the pane of glass, it will almost never be square or rectangular.
Right.
You're not looking at it perfectly straight on. It's any angle that you're looking at that square or rectangle, it becomes a quadrilateral.
Yeah, you're going to catch a profile somehow.
Exactly. Yeah. And so that's been one aspect of these that I've been pursuing, that it took me the longest time to be able to understand how to get the panels to work with the pitch of the sides too, because as you're looking at those objects in space, there is that dimension of of your perception of them as well. So these panels vary in height, width, depth, and pitch simultaneously.
Yeah.
As they would in space. And the effect that creates is that one perceives them as they would a square or rectangle, but because that's how we're used to relating to paintings. A person's whole life, they've understood the painting as being a square or a rectangle. And so they see these shaped panels, and it throws them off just enough to where they're, at least my hope and what I've encountered with many of my viewers, is that they're able to step outside of their own concerns about the experience that they're having with the work to actually have an experience with the work. So they're able to get out of their own way, in a sense. And I'm very much one where I'm always promoting this encouragement that they do have their authentic experience with it, rather than have the worry that they're going to get it wrong somehow or something like that. The
oh no, did I miss it?
Yeah,
kind of thing.
Yeah, the deep pretension in art, for especially with postmodernism, has alienated the world from really experiencing and loving and delighting in one of the most important, profound things that a human can possibly experience. And I think that it's really had a overall very negative effect on people, both across like psychologically, but also just in terms of just their enjoyment of life, you know? And I think one of the most powerful things that artists can do is just to encourage people to celebrate the like delightful associations that they make with a work of art.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, in the context of viewing and consuming, like for as long as humans have been, cataloging media, things have been flat and rectangular or square, like tablets, like stone tablets back in the day. Tablets that are digital now are the same format, and even books in between. Books come in all shapes and sizes, but they're usually like a volumetric rectangle or a square. So it's the human condition is almost tailored to consuming things that are in that shape or format.
Yeah.
So seeing this and seeing those is off-putting enough in the way that is good, that the way you describe, people get out of their own way and have an authentic experience with the piece.
Right.
And I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you've put a lot of time and energy trying to craft the physical item and its associated experience for the viewer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's the easy part is crafting the experience for the viewer, honestly, because they're crafting it for themselves, and it's a little bit them getting out of their own way, but more than anything, it's just me getting out of their way.
Yeah.
And just letting them and just saying, it's okay. Enjoy this memory that you have. Yeah. And I'm so glad that I'm able to connect you to that.
Yeah.
But the construction of them, that's the hard part. Yeah.
So is this like a physical mechanical challenge that you enjoy for its, like, in a nutshell, you enjoy it?
Oh yeah. 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 Very much so. The, my Eureka paintings, my geometric abstract paintings, they were a marriage of the analytical and the expressive side of me, but very much more so the analytical part was the part that was really driving that series.
Yeah.
And it was in breaking away from that somewhat, especially through the construction of these panels, that I was able to start allowing that analytical side of me to just go wild in the construction of them.
Well, you said you made a calculator.
Yeah.
So you made your own formulas to compute these things, so you could say, I need this cut, this angle at this length on this piece.
Exactly.
And then they go together in this order and they make this shape.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm measuring down to the thousandths of an inch for each measurement.
You don't have to go that hard, do you?
I do. I really do. I have to go that hard. Probably somebody else who is constructing these wouldn't feel the need, but for me, it's just I want those joints to be as close to perfect as they possibly can be, because a perfect joint is the strongest joint.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I also go through and I have a domino joiner, so I actually cut mortises and have the dominoes, which are tenons. So I'm using mortise and tenon construction in the corners too.
Yeah.
So they're really, really strong.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they're
So they not only do they touch, they interlock.
They interlock. Yeah. And so they're meant to last forever.
So are they hollow on the backside?
They're open on the back.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. But I follow the not the full process. It's not the same painting on the back, but I follow the same process in preparing the work on the back as I do on the front, so that I try to follow as many of the conservation guidelines that I possibly can, so that my work is hopefully a delight for conservators to
Yeah.
work with, and they're like, "Oh my God, this is so easy."
He did the
all
work
these
for
other
us.
ones are so much harder. But yeah, I want my viewers and my collectors to be able to rest assured that
This is going to look good for a long time.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, there are too many artists that I've seen who are making their shaped paintings on cardboard, and
And I can imagine you just roll your eyes when you see stuff like that.
yeah, it's they don't care about how long their work lasts or anything like that. And it's disappointing to see. Sorry,
It's all right. I promise.
But but also it doesn't matter because I'm making my work for me.
Right.
Yeah.
It just so happens that this is what happened. This is the result.
Yeah. But I mean, I guess that's just kind of one of the things that sets me apart from some other people that might be making work slightly similar to mine, is that my investment into the construction of my materials
so in 200 years when somebody sees this, it's going to look as close as possible to the way it looks right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
And I would imagine there's lots of people that don't as thoroughly approach this as you do.
Yeah.
Which I'm guilty of said things. I'm very guilty of said things. But there are times where I try to take as much precaution as possible, make things like as dialed in as possible.
Yeah. I think a part of it just comes through whether or not that, I mean, for me, it's the analytical side of me that is just being fed through that too.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I'm relishing that part of the process too. So you have to love that weird nerdy part of it.
Well, it wouldn't be the same
if you're going to pursue it.
Yeah. If you didn't feed that aspect of yourself, your art wouldn't be this.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't be as satisfied with the process of making it.
Oh, if I didn't love the process of making this, then the process of making these would be hell. I mean, it's one of those.
You've given yourself a really big boulder to push up this hill.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
A very large, heavy, technically complicated boulder.
Yeah.
But I think one of the ways you've saved yourself a lot of grief is putting grief in on the front end and designing your calculator to make it faster, easier.
Somewhat. Yeah. I mean, even that part has been fun.
I would imagine it's a worthwhile challenge.
To just try to get it working, but also there's almost a graphic design element to it where I have to be able to understand each step of the process really clearly, because if I make the wrong cut on the wrong board, then
the whole thing is screwed.
At least that board is, and with having to make at least 4 cuts per side of each panel, then it's a lot to have to go back and start over with one side again. Yeah.
So you have a wood shop. You do these things in a wood shop, I'd assume.
Yeah. My wood shop is in my parents' house. My dad and I have kind of converted his garage into a maker space of sorts. He's the I would say like the genius tinkerer in a way. He's one of my biggest influences, and he built his own 3D printer before that was really a thing.
Yeah.
And he's made a robotic drawing arm that can actually draw a picture. Things like that, like that. So that's what he's doing.
And you're just like, Dad, I'm here to use the table saw.
and then I have my wood shop set up in there. So I'm building my panels in there, and it's just a cool thing that we have going in there.
So you grew up in a very supportive and expressive environment.
Very much so.
Yeah, you can't have a dad like that. Those people are that way.
Yeah.
For a long time. They just don't stumble upon that one day.
Yeah.
So like you were just steeped in that.
Yeah. My mom is also incredibly supportive, and she's the she has the craft side of things. She's
Mm.
she makes these incredible quilts that like would earn the admiration of like the quilters in G's Bend or things like that,
Yeah,
where
awesome.
they're just beautiful. And constantly I'm taking things to her that I just these different craft projects, like, okay, all right, today we need to like construct this thing with one day was we need to make a cape for my dog because she's a superhero.
Of
That
course,
was a
of
fun
course.
one. Yeah, but there's just been several different projects like that I just kind of come to her with. And so she's also been really influential in the like craft side of thing. But together they often took me to art museums and natural history
Yeah.
museums, and f- sparked that sense of curiosity and
It
wonder.
sounds like you were going to get it whether
Yeah,
you wanted it or not.
right. Yeah.
That's my mom was a public school like English teacher
Mm,
for her whole career, and my dad had all kinds of jobs, but he always loved cooking, and my mom loved cooking. So
oh,
like the creativity in my house
sure.
usually centered around the dinner table. And
Okay.
mom did everything in the house, and
Yeah.
dad cooked all the barbecue stuff outside and grilling and
Okay.
all that. So like inside, outside, two different arenas of food, physically and literally, and it all like the communion and creation of the dinner table was also always something that was happening in my house. Like if I were to call my dad right now, he would probably tell me that he's about to light a fire and get the grill going.
Hmm.
No matter like what time it is, he's always trying to like figure something out because he's cooked competitively, and there's always something going on about food in that man's head.
All right.
There's never like a dull moment when it comes to crafting a recipe or, trying to figure out what the process is to cook this cut of meat or whatever to what he needs for whatever he's trying to do. So not a whole lot of like natural history museums in these trips, but lots of barbecue competitions and lots of talking to people that are like restaurateurs
Oh, okay.
and people that are really on top of their game in the culinary stuff.
Yeah.
And that I went to culinary school for a little while, and that I realized real quick that I love cooking, but I don't like paperwork. So like the quantifiable administrative stuff on the back end of this is not for me, which is probably a lot like your copyright class.
Uh-huh.
But the food is probably one of the first places where I felt like genuinely expressive and creative that didn't involve a pencil or a
Okay.
paintbrush. Food was around way before the Legos and the paintbrushes, but like you and I have seem to have some pretty similar upbringings in our homes.
That's great. I know where we're going after we finish this. Yeah. I'm gonna get some barbecue.
Yeah, darn, sorry to put that in your ear.
Yeah. But the cooking is very much an art in and of itself,
Mm,
and the just as much as with paintings or sculptures or photography, the uh, like the passion and love that a cook brings to the table is
literally and
just,
metaphorically.
yeah, you can tell in the way it's plated, you can tell in the way it tastes. I mean, it's everything. I do most of the cooking in our house, and
That's also something really
it's
technical and
just,
process oriented that you can feed your nerdier side with.
yeah. And
Yeah.
also, yeah, there's an expressive side of it and an intuitive side of it. And yeah, I can just make really good, healthy, delicious food as a loving act.
Yeah.
And that's the best of
It's like
both worlds.
how much more satisfying can a task get?
Right.
Like
Yeah.
that's pretty top tier right
Yeah.
there. Acts of service and nourishing loved ones is like
Yeah.
the spot.
Yeah.
So let's get back to hard stuff.
Sure.
I thought I had more space on my SD card than I do, so we've got 12 minutes left.
Okay.
So give us sort of an audio tour of your studio here, if you don't mind.
Okay. Are we going to get up for this, or are we going to stay seated?
We can stay seated. We don't
Okay.
have to walk around over there for
Okay.
this. I think you know it well enough to tell me about it.
I should hope so. Yeah, I spend most of my time here. If I don't, I think I'm in trouble. I'm already lost. Okay. So my studio is in Broadway Studios and Gallery. And we have 12 artists here right now, all of which are just, they are equally excellent artists and excellent people at the same time. And that's one of the best things about being here and having a studio space here, is that I actually like the people that are here too, and I actually like their artwork that they're making.
So it makes being here a lot easier.
It makes being here a lot easier, and it makes coming here just, I'm even more excited to be here because of the like whole sense of camaraderie that we have, and we also, as working artists, understand the importance of kind of the closed door policy.
Yeah.
So, close the door and you are in your studio, and if that door is closed, you aren't here whether you are or not.
Right. Do not disturb.
Yeah.
A hard do not disturb.
Yeah. And so that balance, and that we all really understand that and appreciate that, is just, it makes it a great atmosphere to work in. My studio is the whitest room, probably in Knoxville. It's
except for the
brilliantly
floor.
White, except for the floor. And yeah, so I have my studio kind of divided into a gallery space and a workspace. And the gallery half, I have
terribly comfortable, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. That's been a goal for me. I want both people who come here to be really comfortable when they're in this part of my studio space with the should we close that door?
No, I'm not worried about it at all.
All right. When they come in here, that this is a welcoming space and they feel comfortable being in here, because if a collector isn't comfortable around your work, then they're not going to
put it in
imagine themselves being comfortable with it at home.
Right.
Yeah. But then also it's very much for me, because this is also my thinking space and my reading space and my writing in my sketchbook space. Even though I have this long bench and I have 2 chairs and probably like 3 different stools scattered around, and I usually just sit on the floor because it's so comfortable. There's 3 rugs down on my floor, and they make the padding just feel cozy.
Yeah.
And
that's one of the first things I noticed when I walked over here. I was like, ooh, this is soft.
Yeah. Whereas the other side is hard, really hard.
It's real clinical over there.
It is. Yeah. But that's always been it's just been a part of what my studio is it has I want to try to cut out as much noise as I possibly can, so that the interaction that I'm having with the work is as clean as it possibly can be, where it's just me and the work, and we're just really deeply engaged in that kind of dialogue that happens whenever you're in the midst of the creative act. It's the way that I've designed my studio is the best way for me to get into the flow. Yeah.
So you find, okay, I wish we had more time. Now this is where this bit me in the ass.
I have an SD card in my camera if you want to swap it out.
It's okay. We'll get to the important questions.
Sure.
Flow state, the zone. You get that. You have it right over there.
Yes.
And you get into that easily?
Very easily.
Because you have such a set up environment to do that in.
That's part of it. Yeah. I also have ADHD.
Okay.
So that is that's the thing that I think that a lot of people don't really understand about people with ADHD, is that we have a quote unquote disability, but it's also a superpower.
Right.
Because we have this thing called super focus, where if we are deeply engaged with something and really interested in it, we can focus on it more than the average person.
And the rest of the world goes away.
The West,
100% doesn't exist anymore.
100%. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. And
that's one of the things that I really try to pick at people about, because I'm super curious, because some people don't care. Some people don't have the ability to go there with their consciousness or their ability to focus. And some people try really hard to make that happen for themselves and get it sometimes because they're trying so hard. But the people that don't ever do it are the ones that amaze me the most. I'm just like, how can you do this and not do that? And it boggles my mind, because I'm on the end of the spectrum where it's just like, I very much enjoy being in that headspace, and just, the world melts away and everything is right here, right now. And this is what I'm doing. And this is the only thing that matters. I love that.
Yeah.
So I try to craft space and time to where I can be in that headspace. And I think as a creative person, you need that, and you kind of deserve to make that happen for yourself if you can, or if you've figured it out, because that's one of the most rewarding moments of being a human. Like, as far as a creative person in the process, like, that is gold. And I love it. And I cherish that, because that's, I think, one of the most important parts about having a brain and being conscious and this meat suit we pilot around. Like, sometimes you deserve to just like laser in on something and only worry about that for 2 hours, for 4 hours, all day, something like that.
Yeah.
It does the brain and body good. And as I notice, your studio space is really clean and organized. And I appreciate that, because everything is nice and accessible and visually accountable all there. What does the notepad in your phone look like?
What does the notepad in my phone look like?
Is it equally organized? Or is it chaos?
I don't use the notepad in my phone very much. My wife and I do have this great idea that she came up with for a shared note, where we have our grocery shopping list with the bullet points that you can click on. So we can just click on one of the items that we buy, and it'll just go to the top of the list as, well, we need to buy that. So we use that, but I don't really use notes that much. I do use this app called Notability. And that has been really helpful in helping me to stay organized with my notes about specific artworks.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with that?
I'm not. And this is one of my favorite questions, because the array of answers that I've gotten, most of the time it's absolute chaos. But then I will have answers like this where people are like, check this stuff out. This is awesome. And then show me things.
So I have this is for this painting, Cordyline. And in here I have all of the notes and just different sketches and things like that I made for this piece as I was working on it.
And it's just like an endless scroll.
It's just an endless scroll of pages, and many of which are repeated as I was trying to work out how to construct this 2-panel piece for it to actually work together as one panel still, while being separate panels. And because as if figuring out how to build these panels that are vary in height, width, depth, and pitch simultaneously isn't enough. I have to also get 2 of them to work together.
That's how you make this more complicated.
Exactly.
You make them intertwine.
Yeah. And I guess that's just kind of where these things go. It's, you start out, you figure out that answer, and then that answer leads to another question.
Always.
And that, for me, is the question is life. That's the thing that's really going to keep me going every day, is having a question. If I don't have a question, I I would be lost without it. I need to ask those questions so that I can figure out the answer to them.
All right. So
Yeah.
I love that answer, by the way. I don't want to like gloss over that. That's great. And I'm very pleased and entertained that's one of your motivating factors.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that and thank you for sharing.
Sure.
But last question I usually ask is, who would you like to hear in your shoes behind that microphone?
Oh, man.
If you can name 3 people, that would be great. If you can't, that's totally okay. And if you can't name any at all, you can shoot me an email later and tell me who you'd like to hear.
Okay. Well, let's see. I saw that you already talked to Denise Sanibria.
Mm-hmm.
And
that was a lovely conversation.
Adam Rowe.
Mm-hmm.
And Josh Shorey.
Yeah.
I would say talk to more of the people that we have in here.
Excellent.
At Broadway Studios. Talk to Jessica and Pat and
there's this place has a directory of in-house artists, right?
Yeah, on our website.
Okay.
I think we're BroadwayStudiosandGallery.com. I'll have to double check on that. Yeah. Well, I should know. I know my social media and website is Brandon Woods Art and BrandonWoodsArt.com. I'm just everywhere at Brandon Woods Art if you're trying to find me. Let's see here. BroadwayStudiosandGallery.com is where you can find the list of all of the artists that are in here. And yeah, we have some really, like, you'd probably be really interested in talking to Larry or Edmund or any of the
I'm sure
anyone.
I will have to go peruse the web pages.
Absolutely.
And send more questions into the ether. So I appreciate you responding kindly to a question on the internet. And wouldn't you know it, just like that, my SD card was full and I felt like a big dum-dum. But this was a really fun conversation and I'm happy to present the hour-ish of it I captured. And that's pretty much the long and short of it. Me overlooking some technical shenanigans. Whoops. I'm sorry, guys.